This is a mug. This is a coaster. A coaster is the perfect size for a mug. This is a mug rug, basically the same size as the coaster, but wider, shaped like a rug, hence the name. Mug rugs can come in any size you want. There are no mug rug police. This one is 4.5 by 7 inches. This one is 9 by 6. And this one is even bigger than that, about 9 by 10 or 11 because of the design that I wanted on there. The fastest way to make a mug rug would be to take 2 pieces of fabric, put some fleece or flannel on the inside, sew it together, turn it right side out, and you're done. Look at that. The beauty of a mug rug is there is room for stuff. You could put a cookie there, you could put a little plate with your tea bag, whatever you want. Or you can just put the mug in the middle. It's just a different concept, but basically the same as a coaster. I am going to show you how to make this folded mug rug in the same way that I have shown you how to make these coasters. It just is a little bit more interesting to have 4 different fabrics instead of just having something solid. So what do we need to make this mug rug? We need 5 pieces of fabric. So 7.5 by 5 for all of these pieces. Backing fabric, fleece or batting. Then you need 4 pieces the same size for the top. So I'm going to be using the sunflower, these sunflower tosses, and the honeycombs. These are from my Honey Bees and Sunflowers Please fabric collection from Riley Blake Designs. Most of the work is done at the ironing board, so let's head over there. We have our 5 pieces. If you're using fusible fleece, you're just going to fuse that to the back of your back fabric, which is this one, following the manufacturer's instructions, or you can use batting scraps. It's just something to give it a little bit of padding for your mug rug. Now we are going to take these 4 pieces, and because I'm using 2 directional pieces, it is a teeny tiny bit more complicated than if you had all non-directional prints, but I want to show you how to do this, and then anything else will be even easier. So you'll notice on this one, I made sure the stems were going in the same direction and one wasn't upside down. Well, I guess it really wouldn't matter. It would just look good from both sides. But I'm assuming most people are going to look at this from one direction. Different from the coasters, because the coasters are square, you just folded everything in half and pressed it, easy peasy. For the mug rug, because it is a rectangle, we're going to press 2 of the pieces in half by matching the short ends. Do that. I'm just going to give it a little press with my quilter's clapper just to cool that fabric off and press that seam. Okay, so we have those 2. And then these 2 are going to be folded by matching the longer ends. We're making longer, skinnier pieces. Now, if you have a clapper and you're doing a lot of pressing and using the clapper a lot at once, you can turn it over every once in a while, just so the heat goes into the opposite side and not always in one side of the wood. So now we have everything folded in half and pressed. Now, one very important thing to note is that the folded edges all need to be on the inside, and the raw edges all need to be what is going to be in the seam allowance when we sew this together. So you want to move them like that now. This one had the raw edges in, so I have all of the folds facing in. Because these are directional and I want to be a little controlling about what is showing, I'm going to be putting this together, and then we will put the backing on top. So this is going to be the top left. This is going to be the bottom left. So I am just matching the raw edges here and the raw edges here. Next, we're going to put the sunflowers up here. So we're going to match these folds and all these raw edges. The 4th one is the one that's slightly trickier because you have to lift one to weave it, because if we do that, we're not going to see this one at all. So what you do is you fold this one back. You put this one in, making sure again that the fold is going to be in the center. And then you simply fold that back. And just do another double check and make sure all the raw edges are lined up and nothing's, kind of off like that. So that looks good. Doing it this way, putting it together before we put the backing, we know exactly what is going to show when we're done. So now we're going to take our backing and we're going to put it right sides together. So the right side of the backing onto the right side of our folded mug rug fabrics and line up all of those edges. Okay, we're going to flip it. So this is what's going to be on the inside, which would also be pretty on the outside, but sometimes you don't know if you're going to get a good piece or not. clip or pin, and I make sure that I clip where these folds meet just to keep everything straight and lined up. Now, one thing I love about this project is we're going to sew all the way around. We don't have to leave any space open for turning at all because we are going to be turning through all these folds. Okay, I think that's an adequate amount of clips. We've clipped all of the folded areas. We have it all nice and straight. I usually flip it over again, make sure I have everything caught on the back and I didn't miss any layers. Now we're going to take it to the sewing machine and we're going to sew all the way around with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You want to make sure that the foot doesn't go up under this fold. So I usually use scissors or a pen or something to hold that down to keep my fingers away from that needle. And as I said, we didn't need to leave anything open for turning. We could just go all the way around and start and stop at the same point. Now we need to clip the corners so that we can get them to turn as well as possible because there are a lot of layers, 2, 4, 5 plus the fusible fleece. And that is a lot of layers in each of those corners. Now you can just clip the corner at a 45-degree angle to there. That is a very traditional way that people do that. But you're then going to have to fold all of that fabric into that little corner. So you're not going to get as good of a corner as if you taper the corner. I remember the term most people use for that. So I'm starting up here and cutting more of an angle. So you'll see more is cut off here than on this side. The main thing is make sure you do not cut your stitching. You also have to go a lot slower and more gently when you're turning this right side out because there's very little beyond that stitching and it will be easier for you to poke whatever you're using to turn out of that stitching or through the fabric. I'm going to trim all 4 corners. Now it is time to turn it right side out. So we have the fleece or batting or whatever you're using for the inside is on the outside right now. This is the inside of the fabric. You're literally just going to put your fingers in the center and you're going to flip each of these corners right side out. But they're still pretty rounded compared to these. So let's do a better job. I'm going to grab my turning tool. This is got a point, but it's not sharp. You could also use the tip of a pen. If it's not opened, you could use a chopstick. Anything that's a little bit pointy that's going to get into that corner better than your finger. Now, the main thing to remember is you have to have your turning tool going against your filling. So if I were to try and push this corner out and put my turning tool here between the sunflowers and this fabric, it's not going to turn the whole corner. It's just focusing on these two. I need it in here next to the fleece so that it is actually reaching the 2 top layers and the bottom layer. And then I'm just going to very slowly and gently, and sometimes I'll squeeze it like that. That helps move along that seam and push that out. You can see it's turned better than these other corners. So I'm just going to repeat that on the 3 other corners. Now, when you're happy with that and feel like you've done the best job that you can without pushing through the fabric or the stitching, you're going to lay it flat, just kind of move it, get those seams right on the edge, and then you're going to press. So you can be done. Like this one, I just pressed it and it's done. It's a little bit puffier. So for this one, I'm going to show you what stitching around the edge and even doing diagonal line stitching does to the look of the mug rug. So let's head back to the sewing machine. Now for doing top stitching on a project like this, the thread choice is going to impact how your project looks. If you want all of the thread to kind of disappear and not be a visible element of the design, you would use navy blue and then switch to gold. I don't want to have to switch my thread, so I'm just going to do navy all the way around. Now I'm going to go all the way to the corner because I am going to, for whatever reason, sew a diagonal down my coaster so that it should go right through that center. You can draw the line if you want to. I'm going to wing it and see how I do eyeballing it. Fingers crossed. Phew, I did a good job. I hit the center. Now I'm going to do it in the other direction as well. Now I could, again, change the thread color to gold if I didn't want this stitching to show, but I am just going to leave it with the navy blue. So that's it. Now we have 2 mug rugs. They are exactly the same fabrics, exactly the same size, but they look a little bit different because this one has just been sewn together and left a little bit puffier. And this one I stitched around the edge and then also through the center. If you feel like you're going to be putting these through the wash, I would probably recommend at least stitching the outside, if not doing a little decorative stitching on the inside. If you feel like you don't really dirty your coasters very often and you like this look better, you're totally fine. Mug on the mug rug. It looks good on them both.